Thank you, everybody. You're still here. Yay. I thought, I might not do the talk. No, I didn't escape. I'm going to be doing this talk. I'm going to be really brief because I want to hear my friend Alex. He's going to be doing his first talk. So last time I did a presentation about micro-frontends. Someone came after and asked a question like, what's the catch? What are the problems with micro-frontends? Because it sounds too good to be true, and you just keep talking about really good things about micro-frontends. So someone asked, what are the risks? What are the downsides of micro-frontends? And that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to be talking about the risks of micro-frontends. And how many of you here are you thinking or considering, or your company is considering using micro-frontends? I just had a question earlier. So many people are considering using micro-frontends. And more organizations are thinking about it, or actually in the process of implementing micro-frontends. And now the question is it a good idea? Is it a good idea to implement this on my company? And many of you are probably asking this question. Is it a good idea? What we want to do is that we want to create a new architecture, but we don't want to make a bigger problem, right? We don't want to introduce more complexity and then everything is going to be worse. We're trying to solve the problem here. So the only problem with micro-frontends is it's a very fine line between benefits and trade-offs. So you could really, really carefully walk that line, but you might fall to the trade-offs side more than the benefits. So come along. I'm just going to tell a really quick story. I know it's story time. It's after party time. So just going to tell a quick story, and then we can just go back to some drinks. So my friend Bob, he's very clever, and he's been asked to implement the Micro-Frontend framework. So his leaders, they just said, hey, we need a Micro-Frontend architecture. And the reason is, well, we need to keep innovating. We need to be trendy. We need to, it worked for us at a previous company. It was really good. So we definitely need a Micro-Frontend framework. So Bob didn't have any choice. And I was like, OK, let's do it. And Bob is a really, really good developer. So let's guess what Bob did. Well, just went to a Stack Overflow, started researching how to implement a Micro-Frontends framework. But then what problem with Bob is that he found more questions than answers. So it was like, oh, server-side rendered micro-frontends, runtime versus dwell time, multiple frameworks like React and Vue and Angular on the same page. And a lot of people just saying, we do it this way. We implement micro-frontends this way or that way. Also, Bob found a lot of micro-frontend specific frameworks. And he was looking at them, and then he found one he liked, and it had a lot of stars, a lot of support. So he was like, OK, let's go for that one. Let's use this Micro-Frontend framework. Later, after a lot of work, finally, he was ready to present this architecture. But there was a problem. People started complaining and saying, listen, this sounds like really, really complex. I can't understand what you're trying to do. And he had a lot of pushback from the other people in the company. But then, good news for Bob, he managed to deploy that implementation to production, but then he started to have more and more problems. The first and biggest problem of all is his website started looking like this. Yay. So he started to have like a monster of a website where it's a complete mess and inconsistent look and feel. Nobody knows what's going on with that website. Also, the way his company worked, they didn't want him to release features, like small features. They wanted to do big releases because that's how we used to do it. And then they were like, no, you can't release every day. We have to release every week. And they just couldn't do that because micro-frontends were split along. Micro-frontends were on the same feature, so they couldn't do that. And that caused even a bigger problem. It caused something that I like to call the release queue of hell, where you have to deploy multiple applications in order to get a coherent, consistent experience. Poor Bob, man. I feel really sorry for him. He's in a really, really big trouble right now. So shall we help Bob? Let's try to help him. But just with a caveat, Like my friend Luca likes to say, everything is a trade-off. And listen, distributed components, distributed micro-frontends, distributed technology is really hard. Just let me say that again, it's really, really hard. So, and also there is no perfect architecture. The best thing that we can do is to go for the best possible case scenario, the least worst option. It's not gonna be the best, the greatest, but at least it's gonna solve your problem. So let's see where Bob went wrong. First of all, the wrong motivations. I think you probably heard this before, but the fact, and this is a true story, that someone from the top told Bob, this is what we have to do, and the reason was because it's trendy or because it's brand new. That is the wrong motivation, because we are trying to solve a problem. That is the correct reason to implement micro-frontends. If you have a problem, try to solve it with the technology. So focus on the outcome. Micro-frontends is just the tool. If you focus on the tool, you are focusing on the wrong thing. And the outcome is to solve the problem of business agility. You want to deploy faster, you want to make your teams more effective, etc. So again, it's more about the goal, not the tool. The second thing that went wrong with Bob was that it was a bit confusing. As we saw, there was like a lot of information. There was not like a single place where you could find how to implement an architecture. And unfortunately, micro-frontends, this is one of the really not very nice side effects, and is that it's very specific to the company. So if it's very specific to the company, every single organization is going to be different. So there will be some different implementations. So what works for you on company A might not work for you on company B. So we need to be aware that there are multiple implementations, and they are because they are for specific companies. There is also a lot of confusion and a steeper learning curve. Doing distributed computing is hard, and you need to teach developers that it's a different way of doing things, and you need to think a bit bigger. It's not as simple as deploying just one single application. The next one is my favorite. This is actually true. I mean, I'm just making fun of the funny Twitter threads that are out there, but actually there's a blog post saying there are 12 micro-frontend frameworks that you should know in 2022. Well, you don't need a micro-frontend framework. That's my opinion, and I'll explain why in a second. This is fake. I mean, there is no thread, by the way. This is just fake. He found a micro-frontend framework from the many that they were available. But one thing is, I don't really, why I say that you don't need a micro-frontend framework is because you are making a big trade-off up front. And is that usually that micro-frontend framework was created for a company, and that company solved their problem. It might not be your problem. So you are making a big trade-off by taking something that worked at company A, and then you're trying to implement it. I'm not against micro-frontend frameworks. I mean, you can use them if you want a head start, but you need to be careful because there is a big trade-off up front, which we are taking all the decisions that these framework authors took and then trying to apply them to our context. You can use them, but just be careful and make sure that you make the right decision there. The fourth one is, there will be pushback. I mean, if you're trying to implement a new architecture, it's expected that you will get pushback from your colleagues, from people in the company. But with micro-frontends, there is a need for the company to adapt. If they're not willing to adapt, then it's going to be more trouble, because you need to change the way you work into a distributed, more independent deployment way of doing things. And if the company is not willing to change, there will be a lot of trouble. So again, find what is right for your organization. And the Frankenstein monster website with inconsistent look and feel. This comes up a lot. And listen, it's not a problem with micro-frontends. I think it is more to do with having a strong design system and strong leadership and governance. When you are distributing things, there is like what I like to call the consistency paradox. How do we keep something looking uniform where it's made up of multiple things? And again, it's something that you can fix with a really strong design system and with some governance. Next one is, this one is a very interesting one. when you split things incorrectly, you will find a lot of problems. And this is one of the hardest things with micro-frontends. How big is a micro-frontend? Is it micro? Is it big? Is it one page? It depends. And it is by far the biggest mistake when there are micro-frontends that are split incorrectly. And a red flag is you start deploying 2 or 3 micro-frontends together. That's a red flag. Why? Because it means that they are probably coupled. And you start getting things like distributed components where they're really, really small and they don't make up one feature, which is very hard to get something working unless you deploy everything at once. So if you start deploying multiple micro-frontends at once, that's a red flag. The solution to all this is to split around business domains. So if you have a team working on something, split it there, and then you can save you some trouble. A side effect of splitting things incorrectly is that you will end up with too many micro-frontends. And this is real, based on a true story. We had this problem where there was a team that decided to do a big release, and it was like 70 micro-frontends that they had to deploy one by one in order to get the website updated. That is the release queue of hell. I mean, that is wrong. And the reason for that is because the micro-frontends were split incorrectly. Now, you don't want too many micro-frontends, because if you have too many, you have unnecessary overhead, a lot of complexity, a lot of infrastructure. It's just, that has to be avoided. And again, distributed doesn't mean decoupled. So it doesn't matter if you have a lot of them, but they are decoupled, that's fine. But if you have a lot of micro-frontends and they're tightly coupled, you are in worst case scenario where you have a distributed monolith, like Alex mentioned earlier. So listen, I'm just want to finish with this. A lot of people, the people I've talked to about micro-frontends on the experience, and mostly the people who have a really bad experience with micro-frontends is because they had an experience with an incorrect implementation. And haven't met anybody who had a really good implementation who complains about this architecture. We have a lot of people complaining and saying micro-frontends is bad, and I went to this company and they use micro-frontends, I was hell, and it was because of this incorrect implementations. So any architecture is only good as its implementation. If you have a good implementation, then things are going to be good if you implement them correctly. And someone also said, do you still recommend micro-frontends? I said yes. If it's for the correct use case. Their argument is asking too many questions rather than providing solutions. But my opinion is, it is an unfortunate side effect of the nature of the complexity of being a distributed system. So if you're thinking about creating micro-frontends or implementing micro-frontends, I hope that you don't make those mistakes and you be aware of the really difficult trade-offs that you might be making if you adopt this architecture. So thank you very much. Yeah, just find me on Twitter if you have any questions, and thank you.